In this episode of the DissContent podcast, we're going to talk about a documentary that all three of us have watched called Three
Hmm.
Identical Strangers. It's available on Netflix right now. And it's also something, that I think if those of us who are hardcore listeners of this podcast will know that I think in the first two or three episodes of this podcast, we had recommended that documentary because we'd seen it at Mami. So it's basically we're hipster assholes. I think that's a good start on Three Identical Strangers. For those of you who don't know, this documentary is okay. Wait, I want to just address something, guys. The DissContent YouTube channel has reached 500 subscribers. So fuck yeah, basically. Round of applause, thank you. So yeah, so all those of you who are listening, especially if you're listening on SoundCloud or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever, please just take the extra effort. If you think we've contributed enough to your film knowledge or whatever it is, or pop culture, then please go to YouTube and subscribe to DissContent. That's DissContent with no space. So yeah, and once again, if you would like to get onto the WhatsApp group of the DissContent podcast, mail me on Aditya9624. That's ADITYA9624 at gmail.com. And in the subject line, please write WhatsApp group for DissContent podcast, and I will add you to it. We're going to be having that by the end of the week. So if you'd like to join the community, please do that. Moving on, Three Identical Strangers is a documentary about uh, and this is not a spoiler at all because this is in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the documentary, or even in the trailer for that matter. Um, a guy who goes to community college at the age of 18 or 19 realizes that everybody over there recognizes him, and eventually everybody realizes that he is not that guy and he is a long lost twin brother because both of them had been adopted and they were born on the same date. So clearly it's a twin kind of a situation. That story is crazy enough to get published in a lot of newspapers, and when it gets published, a third guy gets in touch with it because he happens to read the story and says that fuck, I look exactly like these two, and I was born on July 12th, whatever the year is, right? So the story is about three long lost triplets and how that changes their life and the lives of their families. So I think first impressions, Bharat, how about you go first? What do you think about the documentary?
I found it. I I was thinking about the craft of the film also while I was watching it, because I am in the field of non-fiction storytelling.
Hmm.
I currently work at Nutshell, so I almost felt like the approach initially was like making a telling a very interesting non-fiction story in a fiction, like using the same elements as fiction,
Hmm.
and it jumps right in it. I remember watching it. I saw it very recently. I saw it, I think, day before yesterday with my parents, and it jumps right into the action. It doesn't, go around or fuck around with anything. In the first 5-10 minutes, it sets you up for the entire film. Okay. And I'm like, okay, so if you've told me so much in the first 10 minutes, it's like a fever dream. Like the whole first 10 minutes is so fast. It goes past so fast that I am wondering by the end of 15 minutes that, okay, what more are you going to tell me?
Hmm.
You know? And it keeps peeling back layers after layers after layers. And it sort of, I think by the end, the pace of the film is completely changed. By the end, the pace of the film is slow and it's very serious.
It's like
It's
I
more
would
of,
say it's almost horror at towards the end of the film,
yeah.
you know? Yeah.
and it's, I feel it's deliberate that
Hmm.
the filmmakers use the first few minutes very judiciously, and once you're in it, once you've spent just 15 minutes getting into the story, you're hooked, and then they take their time with telling the rest of the story,
Right.
which I felt was very interesting narratively. And I also found parallels in my own process of non-fiction storytelling, which is that, grab the audience in the first 15 seconds, in
Right.
the first 10 seconds, with the most intriguing bits of your story, and then tell them more, you
Hmm.
know. So I find it really, really, really fascinating. I think I've seen some documentaries in my life, and I have not seen something that's this structure wise so unique. You know.
Right. Himanshu, what do you think of the documentary?
So I did not watch the trailer before so I went in blind,
Full on
and
blind,
I
like you
had
had no idea what was gonna happen.
Same.
no,
Hmm.
nothing. I had no clue.
Hmm.
And like Bharat, this was exactly my thought. Like I also felt a very similar. So I kept scrolling down to see that the timeline. How long have I been watching? Because I
Hmm.
wanted to know कि अगर isn't this the end? And also there is a graph that the film follows. Okay, like it's getting really happy for a
Right.
long time. For about for roughly 15 to 20 minutes, it's really wholesome.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then there is a misdirection, which you can come to know at the end of the
Yeah.
thing. It's not. I don't even know how to explain, because misdirection is not based on information that has been given by the director in the film. It is a
Right.
misdirection on the basis of your assumption of human behavior,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and that is what gets you. I'm not spoiling it, I think.
Right. Right. Right.
And this graph is very hard to achieve. Filmmakers can't achieve it. It's something that a documentary can only achieve, right?
Right. Right.
And that is the fun part about it. If I haven't spoiled it yet, if the
Huh.
audience, anybody ever keeps this in mind while watching it, it will be a really fun experience.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. I think what's unique about this is that both Bharat and Himanshu are sort of experienced at some level in telling non-fiction stories, and I would just like to do like a plug at this point for Bharat has made a wonderful documentary in college. I think it's truly a great documentary. It's called Shamsher, and it's on Blue Pencil Entertainment. I'll just like we can just take a little bit of a you know like we can deviate from the conversation, but like yeah, Bharat, do you want to talk about Shamsher a little bit before we move on
Yeah.
with
I
this?
think I've spoken about it in some episode number, but
Huh.
fine. It's basically a documentary on this India's first Olympic swimmer. He represented India in the 1958 Olympics, the same as the one where Milkha Singh achieved his greatness.
As typical
And
Punjabis hogging all the credit.
yeah, and also this dude was surprisingly the national record holder in all strokes before in 1958. So he's like some sort of a legend, and he nobody knows. I'm sure none of you or anybody who's listening knows
Hmm.
this person's name. In fact, he passed away in 2018. Nobody knows. So we basically in college last year, we just me and a couple of friends, we basically took two cameras and went into the. It was the most, and like looking back, everything that I've learned about documentary making since then is completely opposite of what we did. Okay,
Yeah.
we did not have a translator. Okay, we were going into a place where nobody, not even a single person, speaks or understands Hindi
Hmm.
and or English,
Right.
whatever. My point is that was a documentary that I made. Yeah, fine. Yeah,
Huh. So, so yeah, that's a really good documentary. You guys should check it out if you get the chance. I think it's on Blue Pencil Entertainment is the YouTube channel,
yeah.
and Shamsher is the name of the documentary, if I'm not wrong. And Himanshu has also made a documentary, which is damn interesting. I mean, those of you who are regular listeners will love to watch that because I think at some level you guys know us as well. It's called Himanshu Arya ki degree film, which was Himanshu's degree film while we were in film school, and it was a mockumentary about the rest of us making our degree films, and that was his degree film, which I still marvel at how great of an idea that is, because as we were all fucking running around to get a production right कि यार ये बंदा नहीं आ रहा, sound recordist नहीं आ रहा, editor कुछ कर रहा है, ये गान बना रहा है, whatever, and then Himanshu would just show up, or he would have interns on every other set, and he would just be getting all this great content back in the day, so that's also a great documentary. I think you guys, all of y'all, should watch. So yeah, anyway, my views of the on Three Identical Strangers was that you know, for me personally, beyond all of this, and I think I'd like to go a little bit into spoiler territory. Let's fucking spoil it, dude. Like, I think I would generally, this is the kind of film, you know, that I would want everybody who's listening right now to the podcast to sort of stop it right here, go and watch the
Yeah,
documentary, and then come back.
Yeah.
And because we're gonna discuss the spoilers, man, I don't think it's possible to discuss
it's
this
not
film
possible to
without
discuss this
the
film. Yeah.
spoilers. And I mean, we could do it, but it won't be doing justice to it. I don't think all the topics that we want to cover, we won't be able to. So, this is a good spoiler warning for you guys. If you guys don't want it to be spoiled, I assure you, go watch this. You will not waste your time. Watch it on Netflix, and please come back and listen to us. So, for me, the main conversation that this sparked was, you know, how far can science go? Because if you've now watched the documentary, you will know that that all of this, that these triplets were separated into separate family, and the families, when they found out, were really enraged. You know, that how can an adoption, and they were all from the same adoption agency, a Jewish adoption agency in New York, and the families were really angry because how can you separate triplets, right? It sounds like a very cruel thing to do, but then they were trying to do a study on nature versus nurture, which is the ultimate debate in psychotherapy or psychology, right?
Hmm.
And all these three kids, these triplets that found each other coincidentally, were put in a lower class household, a middle
Yeah,
class household, and an upper class household. So it's a really really uh, you know, I mean, as a study, you can see retrospectively the merit in it if you were an alien. You know what I'm saying? If you were somebody,
yeah,
an objective entity, you could see the merit in something like this. But
yeah.
what if you are a human being, which we all are, and you had to conduct this thing? I mean, you know how? Like, I just want to ask you guys: did you guys think? I'm just curious. Did either of y'all, and any of y'all can go first? Did you guys think it was ethical for this study to happen? Because you know that lady who was involved in the study, she talks about, she's
Yeah,
like, oh, blah blah blah, whatever,
yeah,
fucking,
yeah.
we were doing a scientific thing. But
And
do you guys think it is
and she
ethical
says,
to do something like this?
something funny. She
Yeah,
says you have to imagine the time. You have to
yeah.
imagine that this was the 50s and 60s New York.
Hmm.
So what does that mean? So is it cool in the 50s and 60s to do this? But I mean I also was like, in the middle of the movie I was like, dude, I mean it's not as bad as they make it
Right.
sound. Okay, these are small kids. Okay, these are yeah. You have
Right.
something.
They have been, yeah, yeah. I was just saying these are kids who have been left by their parents
Yeah,
at the disposal of this orphanage slash adoption agency, and that agency has been given the task of putting them with a good family.
Hmm.
So the agency, the only thing that the agency does is they don't they keep withhold the information about them having brothers, triplets, and then put them in class divided families. Now, how much effort or how much out of their way did they go to choose these families and find out their background and do some control research and all? See, there are research has a lot of layers, right? And
Hmm.
they didn't disclose it because the I think the unethical part of the research would be when they start disclosing uh, the 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 pre-production of this research. That is
Right.
when you'll realize that acha, they went to some crazy length
Yeah.
and we
I
don't know that. So
dude.
the
Yeah. The other thing that they did mention was that they not only place them in different households of different strata, they place them in households which had an elder sibling of a certain age.
Yeah. Who was also adopted? Yeah.
So they were not just testing these kids; they were testing the parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, which
But
is the
But again,
uh,
you know, this doesn't answer the fundamental question I was asking. Like, do you guys think it's ethical? Okay, because I don't want to put you guys on the spot without you know, being a dick myself and being like, मैं अपना नहीं बताऊँ तुम बताओ. But like, you know, I personally think it's somewhere in the gray, man. I don't know. You know, I mean, if there is, you know, if there is no other way of finding out whether um, if there's no other way of finding out this particular set of information, whatever they wanted to collate or whatever it is, right? Do you think I think at some level it is justified. I person maybe I am a little old school in that thinking, and maybe I'm a little bit of an asshole in that thinking that it's okay. But at some level I think, because there is no other way you can do this kind of a study, right? I mean, I'm just curious. You can never know how parenting will be towards adoptive children or about different stratas. I'm just saying, like, there's it's very hard to, like, these particular
So
criterias.
I'll tell you, and अब spoiler होने वाला है ना फिर. तो
हाँ, spoiler
the
तो चालू है भाई. हाँ.
हाँ. So there are two different experiments that the people in the documentary are talking about.
Right.
One experiment is separating triplets
Hmm.
and putting them in different classes
So
of
basically,
houses.
nature versus nurture. Is it nature that
हाँ,
determines the person, or nurture that? Huh.
exactly. But and so we throughout the film are like we are like understanding कि अच्छा ठीक है, this is what the point of the experiment is.
Right.
It's separating triplets. Triplets were equal. The
Hmm.
kids are equal, right? So the kids in different controlled households would perform differently because of class differences.
Hmm.
Is probably our understanding of the experiment,
Right.
and that to me did not feel completely unethical. Okay. Now, later on in the end, when you find out that the control or they were not experimenting the children's growth, they were
Hmm.
experimenting, and nor were they experimenting the class differences and their effect on these children on the children. Neither were they experimenting mental health issues at different class differences, but they were experimenting on the parents
Hmm.
and how the parents are basically treating the children. So one parent is very chilled out,
Yeah.
another one is in the middle, and the third parent
Is
turned out to
hardcore.
be
Yeah.
hardcore disciplinarian.
Right.
And that is where the unethical bit comes in, because you start
Hmm.
thinking, acha, so they chose one child to be put
Right.
under a person who should not doesn't deserve to get a child, or
But I don't
Bharat
maybe
think.
wants
that
to
is.
say something. Bharat, go
But
ahead.
I don't think. I think this is in speculation, because we don't know for sure whether they considered this aspect, right?
Right.
We're not sure whether they considered, oh, this one is a hard ass and this one is not a hard ass, right? Never going to come out.
Right.
It will come out, and that is what the one research assistant who tried to speak, like who spoke about in the end, right? The guy who was laughing like a crazy person. You guys
The
remember him, right?
woman, the woman who's laughing.
No, there's
No,
a
the
guy.
man,
The
the
other
guy.
man. Right. 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 Right.
He does say that we were actually checking out the parents, and
Right.
But to what degree? I don't know if they were checking, oh, this dude has a history of being a disciplinarian and this dude has a history of being a nice guy, whatever. I don't know if that was the degree or extent that they went to.
Hmm.
imagine if that is the degree. Now
Yeah, then
imagine
that,
they chose,
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
it is unethical. Then my
Hmm.
opinion on that is unethical. So
But
that
Bharat.
is what
also,
is revealed later on.
but
Bharat,
what,
go on.
see, what sort of shifted my, see, even if we take just the first part of the study, which is separating triplets and putting them into different households,
Right.
what I realized after, while watching the movie, was that all of them, they suffered separation anxiety
Right. Right.
as while growing up. Okay, so
Right.
that basically flies in the face of my theory, which is that, oh, they're kids, they're very small, they don't realize
Hmm.
that they've been separated. But apparently, again, this is very speculative because this has only happened once in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, that three triplets have been separated at birth, and all of them, at some point in their lives, had separation anxiety, and one of them actually killed themselves later, right?
Right.
So that is where I was like, okay, now I don't know.
Yeah.
Like now I'm completely in the gray,
And
right?
this we should a little bit talk about, because one of them, those of you who've seen the documentary, those of you adventurers who choose to spoil your experience before watching, I respect you guys a lot, man, because I can't do that. But one of the triplets kills himself because he gets too attached to the other two, and he's like, "These are my best friends," and
Mm.
uh, he ends up killing himself because he can't take the separation, because obviously one or two of them are going to eventually be like, bro, chal chalta hai, after a gimmick, beyond the point,
Yeah.
all the popularity and all, it fades away, and I want to lead my own life or whatever, and it's completely justifiable, by the way, right? So
Mm.
like that is where the thing comes in. I think my favorite part about this documentary is that it raised that question. I mean, maybe there's no answer to that question, because how can we truly answer that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, is there any psychological study which truly deeply examines human fears or behavior that can truly say that कि हम अपने subjects का गलत इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे, या उसका we won't take advantage of them, or we won't sort of the study won't be worse off for their current behavior? Can there be any psychological study that truly says that? I mean, I don't think that there can be many which can make that
Yeah.
claim, right? So I think that's a very interesting, I think beyond everything else, this documentary brings up that. And I
Mm.
think that's what we all three of us also I think, because जो तुमने सुन के लग रहा है, and either of you all can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's somewhere in the middle, man. It's really somewhere. It's a situational by situational thing, right? कि
Yeah.
कि कहाँ पे. But there's another question over there, right? Which is कि how how do we even choose to progress in a way, right?
Mm.
If you're to ever like, do you guys, okay, like just simplifying it a little bit, because this I found very intriguing, and either of you can take the conversation in any direction you want. But I found personally intriguing was that, do you think individual human beings, and this is a larger question, individual human beings are uh, for the lack of a better word, mentally sacrificable for the cause of knowing something larger? Do you think? What do you guys think about that? I'm just curious, you know, because I think this
Mm.
documentary does bring up that question. Because maybe this particular case is not the case, but maybe in the future there's some case of something. For example, ki in the future we invent AI that is smart enough and we can give it
Yeah.
conscious. That's the ultimate debate, right? We can give it consciousness, and if we give it consciousness and if we keep those things as slaves, then is that slavery? I'm just saying,
All,
like,
yeah.
these are
And
interesting
you know,
questions that comes up.
so yeah, and I actually read a book not recently, I think a year or so back, by one of the leading scientists in this field,
Hmm.
in AI. And the book is, I think, called AI, Artificial Intelligence. Okay.
Who's the
Um,
author?
yeah, I'll search and tell you. I'll let you know.
Hmm.
Alex something, Tergland, something like that. I'm okay. And it's a very good book. And it basically talks about how AI is going to be posing one of the biggest ethical questions in the coming century.
Right.
Because according to this dude, AI is going to become very soon, it's going to be as intelligent or more intelligent than humans. Right. And then he says the moral ethical question is, it's the same as the astronauts in 2001 A Space Odyssey faced,
Hmm.
which is, what exactly is evolution? Okay. And how do we look at evolution and our place in it? Let's say we actually make AI which is more intelligent than us. Do we become willfully subservient to this AI because that is the natural order of uh, evolution? Because if somebody has to discover the truths of life and the universe, the most equipped then would not be humans. The most equipped to answer those questions or to find the answers to those questions would be somebody which is an AI. So then, do we willfully allow ourselves to be made subservient to an AI in the near future? Because
On an
logically,
ethical
that
level,
makes sense.
on an ethical level,
Yeah,
where, so this is bringing us the question of representation also, where does representation of AI will in the future be a question, be an ethical question that we all debate?
yeah,
You know, it's damn interesting actually. It
exactly.
poses a very uh, this is
So
fucking
that's
insane.
what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The book is called Life 3.0, and it's by this author called Max Tegmark.
Okay. All right.
It's very interesting. You should, dude, you will love it. Read it.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Excellent. Himanshu's gone off, by the way. Oh shit, Himanshu's, guys, we're recording this episode. Himanshu's electricity is gone because he's in Assam. So I think we were asking Himanshu
Yeah,
before
what are
we
your
had
thoughts? Because
that
we were just,
technical break.
हम लोगों ने अभी heavy बातें कर दी कि AI and
काफी
all that.
भारी, हाँ.
But what do you think about that? The ethical.
देखो, we spoke about AI and evolution and stuff, and then मेरा
काफी
light
दूर,
चला गया.
हाँ काफी दूर चलेगा और तेरा लाइट चलेगा, which was a really grounding moment. कि मतलब तुम लोग सालों औकात में रहो, तुम लोग वैसे भी इंडिया में ही रहने वाले हो,
It,
तुम
it
लोगों को
reminded
अच्छा नहीं
it
लगेगा.
reminded me of strangely it reminded me of Shri and Bose.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Bharat is touching on some raw nerves right now. Anyway, uh, this is no out of context. Anyway, but Himanshu, go on.
Sure. Okay, I'll tell you. I'm taking this conversation somewhere else. Okay.
हाँ.
Like do you guys think that auto drives,
Hmm.
Tesla autopilot or auto driver is applicable on Indian streets?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. As a guy, as somebody who regularly drives on Indian streets in Bombay, with one of the most fucking uh, sort of क्या बोलते हैं यार उसको, क्या बोलते हैं यार उसको, मैं
Congested,
I'm forgetting the fucking
congested,
word. Congested,
congested.
congested, ridiculous, congested roads. I can say that I don't think Tesla's ready for this shit. I don't think. I don't think they're
Also,
ready.
dude, the thing is, I mean, whenever we see Tesla models, being test driven and all, they have like a uniform traffic condition, right? In India, like Pune's character, like traffic character, is completely different from Bombay. Like
Uh,
I can tell you the exact difference between how a Bombay traffic works as opposed to a Delhi traffic works as opposed to a Pune traffic works. So I
as opposed to Bangalore traffic works.
exactly
Yeah.
they're completely different. They are completely in tune with the character of those cities. Okay, so I really don't know how that uniformity will come. That's my 2 cents.
This is a
तो तुम
little.
बताओ तुम्हारा
This
AI,
I. Huh.
Hmm.
और तुमको लगता है फिर तुम्हारा जो AI है जो एवोल्यूशनरी नेक्स्ट स्टेप है वो तेरे को लगता है पहुंचेगा बैंगलोर के गुवाहाटी के रास्ते पे गाड़ी चलाना ना
I
सिर्फ
doubt
गाड़ी
it.
चलाना
I doubt it. I भाई यार देख, बॉम्बे इंडिया की जो रास्तों पे ड्राइविंग खाली एक चीज नहीं होती, ठीक है. अगर एक्सीडेंट हो जाए उसके बाद क्या करना है वो भी एक अलग ही तरीके का मॉडस ऑपरेंडा है. आई गिव एन एग्जांपल एंड नाउ वी आर गोइंग ऑन अ डिफरेंट टैंजेंट बट फक इट. सो मैं हम लोग जब कॉलेज में थे, we were all those who don't know, listening for the first time, we were studied in Symbiosis in Pune, uh, media and communication, and one of our batchmates was this guy Sushant. He owned a scooty, and during our third year, our final year, me and Sushant were going to a professor's house to show him like our degree films or whatever, and just because he really liked that professor. And वो रास्ते में, ठीक है, there were a bunch of guys, and I won't mention the party, but you can guess the biggest party in Maharashtra. There were a bunch of guys in a car with the poster of that party outside, मतलब वो जो पीछे वाले मारुति 800 थी आई थिंक. और उसमें ना, मतलब हम लोग स्कूटी पे थे, ये बाजू में खड़ा है, ये इन लोग का गाड़ी खड़ी है, एंड देयर वर 5-6 पीपल, वे मोर देन देयर शुड बी इन अ मारुति 800, एंड दे वर देयर. ओके, और उसमें से एक ने अपना पूरा गला बाहर निकाल के ऑन अ ट्रैफिक सिग्नल व्हाइल ही इज जस्ट ऑलमोस्ट नेक्स्ट टू अस, he spat on the ground, and wasn't like a regular spit. It wasn't like a I don't have a dustbin, I'm really sorry guys kind of spit. It was like a fuck you, this is my road kind of spit. It was like आग थूक वाला थूक था वो, ठीक है, इमोशन वाला थूक था वो एक. तो both Sushant and I made a face, all right, and this face wasn't welcome, and they noticed, and this face wasn't welcome by these guys.
Nice.
And so for the next 1 kilometer, these guys were not tailing us or anything, but they were very strategically driving right in front of us. So whenever you try to
Hmm.
overtake them, they would just like, abruptly brake. So we couldn't go ahead of them. And then after a point, I guess they wanted to take a turn or something. They stopped the car right behind us, like it was almost bumper to bumper, and one of them stepped out, not stepped out, he just stuck his neck out way more, like he just almost half his body was out of the car, and he looked at us, made direct eye contact, and he spat on the ground, and he's sat back and they rode off. So I'm just saying, is Elon Musk prepared for this shit when he launches in India? Is my question to you guys. When a Tesla car will throw shade on somebody for spitting pan at it, is that car ready for that shit? I don't think so, guys.
No.
I don't think that's something that's ready for.
इलॉन तो बोल रहा है 5 साल में रेडी हो जाएगा.
गाड़ी
गाड़ी
यार अमेरिका के लिए
गाड़ी
वहां पर
भाई,
जितना
ये
ही बोलो
इलॉन
यार.
मस्क 5 साल में क्या क्या कर रहा है. 5 साल में मार्स
मार्स
का
मार्स
पहला
पे भेज
मिशन
रहा
हो
है. हाँ.
जाएगा. ठीक है, 5 साल में वो बोरिंग कंपनी से सब कुछ कर देगा, पूरी दुनिया में बोरिंग लगा देगा. ठीक है.
हाइपरलूप
मतलब
हाइपरलूप.
हाइपरलूप लगा देगा. ठीक
हाइपरलूप
है.
या
तो कैसे कर. Dude, by the way, you saw the landing. NASA and this one SpaceX
Yeah.
astronauts, they
Yeah,
just
they
landed.
what they had a splashdown, no, which is in the middle of the
Yeah.
ocean. और भाई बेस्ट बात पता है क्या है उसका? उसके बाजू में ना 15 बोट्स आ गए. ठीक है. उसमें एक बेंच, ये लोग स्पेस हो गया है, इनको शायद कोरोना वायरस हो जाएगा कि चूतिया लोग आगे बोट पे देखने के लिए ये क्या चल रहा है. मतलब
नहीं, I think they are planned. I think that was
नहीं नहीं,
those
that
boats
was
were.
no bro, that's the thing. I was reading a report today which was कि the
Oh.
splashdown happened and some boats realized कि ये लोग इधर लैंड हुए हैं और ये लोग पहुंच गए उधर टाइम पास करने के लिए. And then NASA said we should be better prepared. Like they gave like a very serious statement about that shit. It was damn funny.
मुझे वो देख के ना वो याद आया, वो सैंड्रा बुलक की फिल्म थी ना,
Gravity.
ग्रेविटी.
Gravity.
उसमें
हाँ
funniest thing about gravity is in the end she
हाँ
fucking lands
हाँ. और
and then
ऐसे
she's about to drown.
हाँ कुआरों की मूवी. हाँ.
So it reminded me of that moment.
सोच तू
I
स्पेस
I
से
have
निकला है
a
और तू डूब गया यार. अर्थ के समुंदर में.
yeah, and talking about gravity, I saw it a couple of days back again. Okay,
Hmm.
Okay.
and I think it, gravity has heavy layering of other stories. Do you guys remember any of it?
Yeah, I
It's not
remember
just
all.
about. Yeah, so it's about. Do you remember she had
She has a daughter or
she
something, no?
who doesn't who passed away in
Right, right,
a sort
right.
of a
Yeah.
accident. So throughout gravity, like there are instances, moments in the conversations which seem like it's been lifted right out of like a हॉस्पिटल ड्रामा होता है ना, जिसमें कोई कैंसर पेशेंट है जो मरने वाला है and he's struggling and then they are going through chemotherapy but it's failing. So throughout the film it feels like a complete hospital drama because that's the dialogue that is happening because she's struggling to get oxygen half the time. She makes it somehow, she doesn't make it. She keeps like, it's like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's true.
There are
And
couple of
also,
other parallels.
तुम लोगों ने वो देखा है? There is a movie, short film, which is made, I think, by Quaron's son or somebody, which uh, which shows the other side of the conversation that they have while they're on transmission. So she tries to reach Earth or something, and she reaches some random people.
Right.
So one of them is an Eskimo, and that Eskimo, there's a short film on YouTube. You can check it out. That short film is about that Eskimo receiving that call, and it's a very good movie. It's a really
Okay.
good short film. You guys should really watch it.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called. I can actually search right now. Gravity short film Eskimo, something like that.
Right.
Even in the film,
What
she's
is it?
talking to like a
What is it?
Chinese guy.
Yeah. What is it called though? What is it called?
It's called Aningak. Aningak. Okay.
Can you spell it?
Aninggaaq.
Okay. All right.
Pretty cool, dude. It's by Jonas Cuaro, I think his son.
Okay.
Hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just coming back to Three Identical Strangers, I mean, just at one point, like I was watching it with my fiance, and both of us were, कि मतलब इसमें क्या क्या कॉन्स्पिरेसी सीरीज हो सकती है, क्योंकि ये बंदा एक तो पहली बात जो साइंटिस्ट, द गाय हु वाज लीडिंग दिस एक्सपेरिमेंट फ्रॉम द, एक तो वो आया ऑस्ट्रिया से. ठीक है. तो पहले ही इट्स एंड ही हैड अ वेरी जर्मन साउंडिंग नेम, तो आई फील लाइक उसका थोड़ा नाजी कनेक्शन भी हो सकता है.
नहीं उसका
नहीं है. नहीं है. ओके.
he was a Holocaust survivor. That's what the thing.
वो तो वो बोल रहा है ना.
वही.
मैं खाली बोल रहा हूँ, मैं खाली कह रहा हूँ कि देख, अगर तू नाजी होके आया है यूएस में, तो मैं थोड़ी ना बोलूंगा मैं नाजी हूँ, मैं तो बोलूंगा मैं हॉलोकॉस्ट सर्वाइवर हूँ ना, क्योंकि कोई पूछेगा भी नहीं कि भाई दिखाओ
सही
अपना
बात।
टैटू दिखाओ, मतलब ऐसा तो नहीं ना कोई बोलेगा, ऐसा अच्छा तो नहीं लगता है. But uh, but we're just thinking about conspiracy theories that what if like
Yeah,
this sucker came and he just wanted to continue experiments on Jews because it was a Jewish adoption agency. You know,
yeah,
I'm just
that's true.
I'm just fucking around. Okay, I'm just spreading
But it's very
nonsense.
interesting theory.
Yeah, it is though. It is right.
Well, and
वैसे
at a, uh,
अच्छा, a very popular TV show has been made recently this year. It came out
Hmm.
on Amazon Prime. It has Al Pacino in it. Okay, I'm forgetting the name.
Hunters,
And it's about
Hunter,
finding
Hunters.
Hunter.
uh not
अबे अटक गया इसका. Hunters.
Yeah, yeah, we can
hunters
hear you.
hunters.
Yeah, that's Hunters.
Huh.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched it? It's about finding Nazis in
I
the
watched a
current era.
couple of episodes, but फिर मुझे बहुत ही बचकाना लगा तो मैंने बंद कर दिया देखना.
Yeah,
हाँ.
they made fun of it. That's the
Yeah.
problem with that. But it has that same tone, like
I don't
it's talking
think
about the same thing.
I might be whatever. I might be a film bro for saying this or whatever, but I don't think I will ever see anything that was, a better film or show or whatever about hunting Nazis than Inglorious Bastards. I'm just saying. It's for like it's might be a film bro thing to say because it's a Tarantino film or whatever, but like still, I still stand by it, dude. It's my favorite Tarantino film, Inglorious
Same,
Bastards. Yeah.
same.
There's a that scene in the again deviation, but like that scene in the bar when suddenly it's like you think they've gotten away, and then that
Yeah,
dude, I don't know the German dialogue, but in the English subtitle is "Might I inquire?" Like
yeah,
where are you from? And then he gets into the whole
yeah.
corner. Fuck man, now I want to watch Inglourious Bastards again. Fuck you guys.
It's a really
Fuck.
cool movie. I mean, it's definitely my favorite Tarantino film as well. And
Uh,
back then, I was I mean, much younger. I have a, by the way, I have a good Inglorious Bastards story.
bol bol.
So how it happened was there was some contest on their Facebook website, whichever platform was releasing, not platform, like production house was releasing it,
One second, I
and
can't
we
get
had
over the
to,
fact you called it a Facebook website. Okay, go on.
and I think I might have been in, like, I'm guessing 11th standard or 10th standard, something like, no, not 11th standard, 10th standard. 11th standard I wasn't in Delhi. So तभी कॉन्टेस्ट था उनके फेसबुक पे कि आप कुछ तो कैप्शन वैप्शन लिखो तो आपको फ्री टिकट्स मिलेंगी, एंड देयर वर ओनली 2 tickets, and I won those 2 tickets. Okay, and I had to go all across town to watch that movie, but I did not have a second person to watch it with, and
Hmm.
it had a A rating,
ए रेटिंग
so
हम
they would
लोग
not.
15 के थे तब, मुझे याद है वेकअप
हाँ,
सेट हुई थी रिलीज और मैं
तो
वेकअप सेट देखने गया था चूतियों की तरह क्योंकि मेरे उम्र बहुत कम थी. हाँ.
So I had to basically take somebody who's an adult so that they ensure that I can go in. Okay. So I took my mom to watch Inglorious Bastards all across town. Okay. It was like, I'm telling you, it's like a 40-kilometer distance.
हाँ.
And this was at 11 p.m. at night.
हाँ.
Because it was the Thursday night show. It wasn't even the Friday morning show. It was the Thursday night show.
हाँ.
So I saw the movie, probably the first, like, I was one of the first people in India to see that movie
Oh
with my
damn.
mom. With
Oh,
my mom,
more than
and
anything what did your mom think?
she loved it.
Oh.
She loved it. It's and that's when I realized that it is also a very approachable film. It's not like
Hmm.
it's not needlessly gory. Apart from those
Huh.
scalping scenes.
Yeah. And the first scalping is Tarantino himself. That's his cameo
Yeah,
in the film, right? This is the
yeah,
thing. Like, I think that's the key difference between, say, a Kubrick and a Tarantino, and like a Bergman or a Tarantino. You still have to be a film buff to watch a Bergman film, but a Tarantino
yeah,
film or whatever, it's just so approachable, man. Like, and you know what?
yeah,
I really feel, and so far, all of us film bros or like whatever film enthusiasts or whatever have been very elitist about this one thing, which is that I do think a film, if it's a great film, truly, like an
Hmm.
Inglourious Bastards or a Zodiac or a Social Network for that matter, you know, like if it's a truly great film, it should be given some extra points for approachability while still being a great film, and I think we kind of sometimes miss out on that. Like we sometimes completely discount the approachability of it, right?
Yeah, that like Agira, I can't show my parents because first of all they'd be bored.
Yeah.
I
So I
did.
was, oh, you
Oh,
did?
you did
How
show
was
your
it?
parents.
Yeah.
What? By the way, context. Our previous episode of the podcast was on Agire, so go check that out as well. Bharat, Himanshu, sorry, go on.
So I told them that I've just watched this film and it's
Hmm.
crazy and you guys have to see it, okay?
Right.
And I just put it in front of them on a laptop and I walked out. Okay.
Right.
And
Nice
they
one.
so they finished it, okay, and that's props to them.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I went back and I was like, "How was it?" and they didn't like my father literally like ignored the question, okay, and he walked out. And then
That's the
I
best
told my
reaction. Ignored.
and even my mom didn't say anything for the first time, and then I let it be. I said, "Fine, I'll ask later." And all. I went away. Then I came back later again, and only my mom was there. I just uh, sat down next to her. I said, "बताओ ना मूवी कैसा लगा?"
Hmm.
And she said, "स्टार्टिंग में तो अच्छा था, एंड में वो क्या बोलने लग गया कि अपनी बेटी के साथ शादी करेगा."
Fair enough. I would say fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I
legit,
started laughing. I said, "हाँ वही था माँ." That was the point.
legit reaction from parents. Hey, acha,
Nice.
Himanshu. Sorry, coming back to the movie. I mean this one. क्या
Three
नाम था
identical
यार?
strangers.
तूने बोला था कि there is a point in the movie where you think there is a misdirection. I want to compare notes because I also think that there was a moment like that in the film. But I want to know from you what you think that moment was.
So in the film, na, initially they keep showing you talk show clippings of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
three people being very similar, and they keep and that keeps making you think that okay, so the if there was an experiment, it was about how similar these three kids were,
Yeah, exactly.
and how separating them would
Hmm.
how much of a differentiation would you know these kids come up like how much like the nature versus nurture theory na, but only on from the point of view if the kids how different would the kids be. That's it. That was the only miss that
Correct.
I assumed ki that is the point of the experiment
Correct.
until I found out that the point of the experiment was to figure out how how different would the kids turn out under different kind of parents. And that's when I
Hmm.
Hmm.
realized that the misdirection was in the style of editing by the director.
Yeah.
He tried to keep reminding us that there are similarities, right? To show us
Correct.
कि अच्छा the they fought the three triplets fought the battle of the experiment and turned successful in being
Hmm.
similar still.
Hmm.
But
Correct.
that was never the point.
That was
The
another
point
point.
was never
Yeah.
to figure that out. The
Correct.
point was
Correct.
to figure out how how much of an issue will the parents uh, different kind of parents have on different on similar kids. I think
Yeah.
similar kids with similar minds, and how much of a pressure would different kind of parents have, and
I
that is a
also felt,
bigger problem.
yeah. I also felt there were certain moments very much like a detective film where you leave the clues earlier and then you come back to them and say, oh, this is what it meant. And you use it like a mic drop moment where you're like, oh, all of these things were shown because of this. So that they've used for the champagne wala moment. Remember when these people, this dude goes back in and he sees that the adoption agency people are making a toast. And when I was watching it for the first time, I realized, oh, okay, maybe they're just, how filmmakers do it, like they give you a lot of information, like these little details which can be fun to watch, but later you come to realize that that was also serving a purpose. So that was also very interestingly done.
Right.
Yeah, there's this one shot of one old lady. And her dialogue is, "You should not. We only tell the parents how much they need to know."
Yeah.
And that is the justification she gives for
Hmm.
not telling the triplets parents sets of parents about the existence of other children.
Hmm.
And then once we find out that there was a bigger experiment being played on parents,
Right.
that's when you can they play that clip again, and it's the same dialogue is repeated but it has a different meaning.
Right. That's what that sparks a debate of about elitism. That's a, I mean, if an achievement of a film, and I think all of us are also, and I keep on repeating this in every podcast because I think I want our listeners also to know this, because all three of us, I don't think either, none of us are talking from a perspective of a film critic. We're all
Yeah,
filmmakers at our core, right? I think all of us hopefully will be making movies for for the rest of our lives. And I think the core goal of any film is to keep a debate going, is to keep a discussion going. And I think that at that this film succeeds at multiple levels. Like you were talking about that misdirection also, where about which is not just about, which is not about not even about all that scientific nonsense. It's also about, like, how you present a documentary. I think this film also makes a good example of that, because the first half of it is like, they're showing you everything that you want to, as an audience, you want to believe and you want to agree with, and you want to, and then the second half gets more darker, which is like more about all the issues that they face and the dissimilarities that they had instead of the similarities, right? And
yeah.
I mean, I think in that this documentary has made me perhaps think more than any other documentary that I've seen in a very long time. I think the last time was another documentary, but that I'll recommend in my recommendations for this episode, unless you guys have anything else to say about this one.
I have a very sort of personal insight to add.
Huh?
I think um, what sort of hit me personally, and also I was watching it with my parents, was the bit about suicide. Because I'll tell you, like, whenever there is suicide in the family, that memory sticks with your family throughout. Okay.
Right.
So whenever next you hear the news or you watch something that is remotely related to suicide, that is what your mind will go back to.
Connects. So right.
Yeah. And this happened, I'm telling you, this happened with the Sushant Singh Rajput case.
Hmm.
The moment that news broke, it was like we were personally involved, even though we are not.
Right.
But so that this film also, I think, treated that part of the story at least very sensitively, and also it gave, like, it didn't, as I said, the pace of the movie did not treat it as like a plot point. It actually made it like a empathetic sort of portrayal.
Right.
Because
Right.
for me, the flip was that moment. That's when I realized, fuck, man, like, this is where real lives were involved, and somebody literally killed themselves. And the possibility, even the remotest possibility, that he could have killed himself because he was part of a human experiment,
Right.
that just boggles the mind. And that's where,
Hmm.
everything becomes shady as fuck, personally. And even as a film, they've been sensitive enough to show that, is what my point was.
Certainly. I think this documentary handled suicide way more sensitively than our current news media, even the best of them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless you guys want to address that stuff or not, we can also choose to
No,
not
it's
address
fine.
it, because it's just always on the news, man. I can't get over
Yeah.
this shit. Fuck it. Anyway. Uh, Himanshu, do you have any last words on Three Identical Strangers?
The movie, yeah. So I think we can end with that. The movie, the documentary. In the end, again, spoiler. It gives a very definitive answer from the director's perspective about the nature versus nurture argument.
Debate.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the I'm just saying it, the director, along with a couple of the people in the documentary, they think it's nurture which is more important,
Hmm.
and they
Yeah.
think the point of the experiment was to put for more focus on parenting.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And do you guys think uh, your dilemma has been solved, your
No.
personal?
For me, a little bit. Like Bharat saying no, but I think for me a little bit, which is that, I think this is also part of the documentary towards the end, which is that, nature can be anything, and it's definitely a very very formative sort of part of anybody's being, but uh, it's nothing that nurture cannot overturn potentially. Not definitively. That, okay, for example, somebody might be somebody's birth parents might be, both of them were probably drug addicts. They did not have a stable life, were extremely, had very bad mental issues and addictive personalities and explosive personalities and stuff, and they probably had to give their baby away. And then maybe that child is brought up in a household where it got a lot of love, a lot of motivation, a lot of freedom to do whatever that child wants to do. And I genuinely think, I mean, you've got to think that I think that it's that nurture can overturn anything that nature has done potentially. I'm not saying in every case, but potentially can overturn anything that nature has, because otherwise what we are basically saying is that nature is almost entirely unoverturnable, which means that people are resigned to their fates,
I
which I
I
don't know
mean,
if I'm ready to accept that, frankly.
I don't know what proportion it is. And I
Yeah.
don't think anybody knows for sure.
Exactly.
Because think about it. There are
Hmm.
serial killers who have
Right.
had no family troubles, okay?
Hmm.
But they still turn out the way they have, right?
Hmm.
So my point is, there is some, even to appear to have a definitive answer to this, you will have to know a lot more than
Yeah,
I
than
personally.
us, than all of us combined.
Exactly.
I think. Yeah.
So that's why I'm
Right.
a little more cautious about. In fact,
Right.
when now that Himanshu mentions it, I remember the ending now more,
Huh.
and I remember feeling a little. That's where I felt a little dissonant with the filmmaker, where I'm like, okay, this is going towards a little convenient sort of
Right.
finding the answers, which is that nurture is just simply better. But
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, that's your opinion. That could be the opinion of the people in the film,
Hmm.
which is fair. But as a filmmaker, if I were making the same film, I would probably not take that leap. And somewhere I felt that the filmmaker wanted to take that leap and end it on that conclusion.
Right.
So yeah,
That's a
anyway,
fair criticism, because that seems like a good enough narrative endpoint. As I mean, all of
correct.
us as filmmakers, that's a good narrative endpoint to end a film at, right?
Correct.
But I also think, I mean, just to like further justify my what I meant to say, and I kind of partially agree with Bharat also, because this is such a fundamental debate, man. I don't think fucking
Yeah.
three assholes on a podcast can really, on a film podcast no less, can can
So,
definitively say
yeah,
what is what. But I generally think that, at some level, okay, the 2 points over here is that at one level is that nurture can influence nature beyond a point, which is, when nurture has overwhelming effect on the person's nature, right? Which is what I'm trying to say, that that it's very likely that in most cases that can potentially be the edge factor, right?
yeah,
But if we are trying to say that nature is sort of the ultimate thing, then I mean none of us can, then I mean, fairly speaking and frankly speaking, even a serial killer should not be held accountable for their actions, and should they? I'm saying,
yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying, like, then they should not, because then it's their nature, then it's something that even if they were in the best of households or worst of households, they should not. It's like that theory I was hearing about the other day, which is that, which I believe our our former director of our college used to also spout very often, which is, which is a very popular theory, and I think largely has been true throughout history, which is, you take the top 20% of the population of any society, you put them in the best of situations or the worst of situations, they will fucking find a way, because they have that ambition and they have that sense of, like, overcoming the victimhood, or overcoming their advantages and guilt, or whatever else 100 factors that
yeah,
influence you, and they will overcome it and become successful. And then there are 20%, you put them in fucking the best of households, the worst of households, or whatever it is, they will always be never be able to achieve anything. And the majority is the 60%, which can sway either way, which is also in politics, it's called like the swing vote, right? So I mean,
mhm,
it's a really it becomes a much deeper debate, and I really love, I would try to conclude with, like, this film is so great that it makes you think in so many tangents. I think that's the best achievement of this film, despite, I think,
yeah.
Bharat, I think your criticism is very valid. I did not think of it that way, that's for sure. That maybe that it's true that filmmaker, maybe that has also colored my reasoning, because that filmmaker shouldn't have
Correct.
ended the film on that like sort of definitive
Correct.
note, right? But I also think that filmmaker also thinking like I'm thinking right now, which is ki,
Yeah.
if
It's
you say
not
nature is everything, then it becomes a little
correct.
convenient also.
That's true.
Anyway,
Anyway,
let's jump into our recommendations for this episode, which is another I will just start out because fresh on my mind, and I also referenced it earlier, which is a documentary called Best of Enemies. It was on Netflix a long time back. It's not on Netflix
dude,
anymore.
I think you've already recommended it in some
I
other.
have, I have, but I think I want to recommend it again because it's because relevant to this topic also, because this is a documentary apart from this one that has really beyond any other point or whatever, any other interesting, a lot of documentaries maybe better than this or have told me interesting stories, but they really made me think. And Best of Enemies was another one, and it's about William F. Buckley, who was a right-wing thinker, and Gore Vidal, who was a left-wing thinker, having the first ever news TV debates during the Nixon election in the US. And I think it's fucking fabulous. So it's actually the birth of what we are witnessing right now in India, the pinnacle of what the debate television of
Yeah,
arguments of just vicious bullshit that happens on news television these days. The Best of Enemies, if you watch that documentary, you will get to see that. And that was produced by Magnolia Pictures, which is, I think, Paul Thomas Anderson's company. So that's just another
yeah.
extended prop to that documentary. Anyway, Himanshu, you want to go next on recommendation?
Can I recommend a YouTuber?
You can recommend
Yeah.
anything you want to.
Okay, so recently I have been binging this YouTuber. Her name is Lindsay Ellis, and she's a book slash Disney films slash Broadway plays reviewer, and she goes in depth into the thinking behind just this. Okay, just books and popular books, not random, they're like really popular books, really popular Disney films, and Broadway plays. And she gets what she does is she gets drunk and she starts reviewing it, and then she gets more and more drunk progressively, and her review gets crazier and crazier. And you can binge her, and she's on multiple different YouTube channels. She's not on one, like तीन चार अलग अलग जगह पे आती है. So where you can kind of binge it. Like she talks for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and it's quite funny. It's
You
something
know,
that I never
Nice.
thought I would be like listening to, and you guys
What's
might like it.
what's the name again?
Her name is Lindsay Ellis. Wait, let me.
yeah, I found
Uh,
her.
We'll
is that
put that
on?
in the description on SoundCloud and YouTube. In the description, so we'll put the link for that
Yeah.
YouTube channel. Bharat, your recommendation quickly.
So I have basically watched. I'm watching a lot of film on the Criterion channel.
Hmm.
So I watched Fallen Angels by this one. Uh, Chunking Express का director कौन है? Wong Kar-wai.
Wong Kar-wai.
हाँ.
And dude, you guys, I'm telling you, just please watch it.
आंख
It's
बंद करके वाली मूवी है क्या ये? आंख बंद करके देखने वाली.
dude,
हाँ.
it is. I'm telling you, it's a trip, and just watch it. And the good thing is, you know, a lot of my problem with a lot of Gaspar Noé's films is that,
Hmm.
I mean, he's a very good filmmaker. He's a very good visual storyteller. I love it for the visuals, but he doesn't have he doesn't have much to say according to me. Like he wants to arrest you with visuals and the multiple ways he can tell a good story. But Fallen Angels has that very interesting visual style, and it has a very cool story.
Hmm.
It has a very good story, and it's very different from his other movies, which is In the Mood for Love and Chunking Express and 2046 and whatever other stuff that he's done. But Fallen Angels is absolutely amazing. Just watch it for it's all shot in this maddening fisheye lens style. Okay,
Yeah.
it's mad. If you watch, and I'm telling you, if you watch I just watched like 10 seconds of it, and I
Hmm.
knew I had to watch this because it's so interesting. It's so cool. Just watch it.
All right,
Fallen
so
Angel.
that's Fallen Angels is the last recommendation, and Criterion Channel, by the way, I'll just add, is a streaming service which they're not paying us. By the way, we'd be damn lucky to get paid by them, but I would do it even for free for them. You know what I'm saying? But like, Criterion Channel is a streaming service which is much fucking better than Movie, I must say. All right, and it's world cinema. Criterion collection का जो भी cinema है, they put it on that. You gotta download this separately. You don't get this in the Play Store. Okay, you have
Yeah.
to just download the APK file if you're an Android. I don't know if you're an iOS how to do it, but APK file. If you're in India, that's what I'm saying. If you're outside, then you can download it anyway. APK file
Yeah.
download करके you can take the subscription, and it's a very worth it thing. You can get it. I would really highly recommend that. So that was the episode for today, guys. And thank you guys for listening. That's the end of the episode.
Bye.